Hello, my grade 7 students. How are you? I hope that you are all fine. Are you ready to continue our biology lessons? So that let's start together. First of all, I want to ask you a small question. What do we need in order to survive, in order to stay alive? Or what do we need in order to do any activity in our daily life? For example, if I want to run, if I want to walk, if I want to make any activity in my life, what do we need in order to do these activities? What do we need in order to stay alive? Think for a bit, then let's see what is the answer. Yes, in order to stay alive or in order to do any activity, first of all, I need food. So that we should consume food in order to do any activity or in order to survive. What do we need also? Other than food, we also need oxygen. So that in order to do any activity or in order to survive, we need to consume food and oxygen. But as we know, we have many activities that the effort of these activities vary according to the type of activity. For example, the running is different than walking. So that does the need of oxygen and food vary according to the effort that we exert during a physical activity? Let's ask this question and let's start our lesson with this problem. I want from you now to put your hypothesis, bring a paper, write your hypothesis, take a few minutes, answer the question as we said before that the hypothesis is answer to the problem. Write your answer on the paper and let's see at the end of the video if your hypothesis will be correct or not. So, in order to see if your hypothesis that you wrote is true or false, so that let's start by doing this small activity. Now I want from you to bring your clock, bring a paper and pen. What we want to start is in order to see if the quantity of consumed oxygen will vary during physical activity. So that I want from you to write on the paper this table. In this table, we want to measure the respiratory rhythm during different situations or during different physical activities. As we said before in the lesson of respiration, that the respiratory rhythm is the number of respiratory movements that are done during 1 minute. So that I want first of all from you to sit down and for 1 minute count the number of respiratory movements that you do in 1 minute, and also during walking, then during running, and record your values on the paper that you want to record the results on it. So that now I did these activities and I measured the respiratory rhythm during these three activities, and the values are shown in this table that you see in the video. So that let's start by comparing the respiratory rhythm during sitting when I don't do any activity and during running. As we said before, that if I want to compare, first of all I want to see if I have numbers or if I don't have numbers. Here of course I have numbers, so that I should use one of the three words less than, greater than, or equal to. So that take few minutes, pause the video please, and then write your answer in order to see if your answer is correct or not. In order to compare the respiratory rhythm, let's start. The respiratory rhythm during sitting is 22, less than that during running, which is 48. So that what happens to the respiratory rhythm during the increase in the effort of physical activities? The respiratory rhythm increases. So that can we make now a relationship between the physical effort exerted and the respiratory rhythm? Let's have a look. As we said before, that the relationship is to see how does each factor vary according to the table. We were sitting, then walking, then running, so that I make more and more effort during this physical activity, so that the effort of physical activity increases from sitting to running. Now, what about the respiratory rhythm? 22, 34, 48. So that what happens to the respiratory rhythm? The respiratory rhythm increases, so that this relationship can be as the physical effort exerted increases, the respiratory rhythm increases. So that because of that, while you are running, you will make like that. Why? Because you want to consume more and more oxygen in order to do this physical activity. So that I can conclude from this activity that when the effort of physical activity increases, or during a physical activity, we consume more and more oxygen, so that the need of oxygen during physical activity will increase. Is your hypothesis true or false? Please check your answer. So this is about the first part of the question, which is how does the need of oxygen vary with the physical activity? But what about the consumption of food? In order to know how does the consumption of food or the need of food vary during a physical activity, let's look at this activity. Here we have a table. During this table, we measure the consumption of food before the activity and during the activity. So that let's start by comparing the amount of consumed food before and during the activity. So that first of all, also I want to see if I have numbers or if I don't have numbers, and if I have number, I should put the number and I should put the unit. So that also pause the video please, put the paper in front of you, write the answer, then check if your answer is correct or not. So if I have a look at the table, I will see that the amount of consumed food before activity is 1,200 grams, less than that during the activity, which is 2,300 grams. So what happens to the amount of consumed food during the activity? It increases. So that if I want to make now a relationship between the physical activity and the need of food, I see that as the physical activity or the effort during physical activity increases, the need of food also increases. So that when I want to make any activity or during physical activity or during making an activity with more effort, we want to consume more food. Okay, so that as a conclusion from these two activities, I can conclude that during physical activity or during physical exercises, we consume more oxygen and more food. So that in order to make any activity, I need more amount of food and more amount of oxygen. But why? Why do we consume during a physical activity more food and oxygen? Why do we need more food and oxygen, in your opinion? Anyone has an answer? Please, can you think for a bit before I give you the answer? Why do we need more oxygen and food during a physical activity or when we increase the effort of physical activity? But do all the types of food produce the same amount of energy? Let's see. As we know that we have different types of food. For example, the proteins that are found in meat, chicken, egg, and so on. We have also the lipids, which are found in oil, butter, and these types of food. And carbohydrates, which are the sugars that we consume from different types of food, like bread, like rice, like grapes, and so on. So that in this table, what do we have? We have the amount of energy produced by each type of food. Okay, so that the energy is measured in kilojoules, so that it's the unit of energy, which is kilojoule. For example, the distance is measured in meters, the time is measured in seconds, and so on. Also, the energy is measured in kilojoule. So that let's have a look at this table and let's see what is the most energetic food. According to the table, the most energetic food is the food that will produce the highest amount of energy, which is lipids. So that lipids is the most energetic food. But lipids is not the first choice for any cell in order to produce energy. We have the glucose. Glucose is the sugar that is found in our blood. This sugar is a product of digestion of carbohydrates. So that, for example, when I consume a certain food that contains carbohydrate, it will be digested in our body. The end product of digestion will be glucose. This glucose is the first choice for the cells in order to produce energy. If we don't have a glucose, then the cell will use the lipids in order to produce energy. So that lipids and carbohydrates are the energetic food that are responsible for the production of energy. For example, if you make any diet, first of all, you want to stop eating sugary food, right? Why? Because they once they are digested, you will have a glucose, and so that our body have a huge amount of glucose, so that he will use the glucose in order to produce energy. However, if you stop eating sugary foods or the food that is rich in starch, glucose will not produced in our body, it will not be digested, will not found in our body, so that your cells will use the lipids that is stored in our body. Once they use the lipids, the amount of lipids in your body will decrease, and so that you will have loss in weight. Okay, so that all of I need from this slide, that lipids is the most energetic food. We have the carbohydrates and lipids, which are the most energetic food, and glucose is the first choice that the cell use in order to produce energy. But what do we do with this produced energy other than the physical activities that we do? First of all, we should know that the cell will use the glucose consumed from the food and the oxygen consumed from the air in order to produce energy. But let's have a look. Also, this will produce carbon dioxide and will produce water in the form of water vapor, so that this process that is done in the cell, in which the cell consumes glucose and oxygen to produce energy, carbon dioxide and water, is called cellular respiration. Why do we call it cellular respiration? First of all, cellular because it's done by the cell. Then respiration because we have the consumption of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide. So that this diagram can be transformed into an equation in which the cell will take the glucose plus oxygen to produce or to give carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This energy is used first of all in order to make any activity, or in order to keep our body temperature 37 degrees Celsius. As we know that the normal temperature of our body is 37. Once it decreases or increases, this energy will maintain the body temperature 37, so that it will keep our body warm. How? When, for example, the temperature decreases during the winter, you will feel that you are cold, so that your cells will produce more energy, and this energy will be used as heat in order to increase the temperature to be 37 degrees Celsius. So that, my students, this is our lesson today. I want from you to study the summary on your books, page 69. Then open your workbooks, solve page 93, parts A and B by referring to the book. Okay? I hope that you get the idea and you understand the lesson. If you have any question, I'm ready. In the second video, we want to solve exercises together. I will solve an exercise about this lesson in order to see how the exercises come about this lesson. And thank you for watching, my students.